Swing your arms away from your body, move your legs out.
In the 1960s, Brian Duffy was a star, as famous as the people he photographed.
David Bowie, Brigitte Bardot, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Duffy was the best of them all. Best of them all by a long, long way.
I loved Duffy. He was very frightening, but he was the business, you know.
Duffy's iconic images of the 60s and 70s captured the spirit of a time when Britain defined cool and anarchy was in the air.
Charlton Heston, Terence Stamp. God, there's Putters, bless him.
In the cultural history of Britain in the 1960s, Duffy has a very significant place.
Sidney Poitier, Christine Keeler.
He changed the way photography was, or had been.
But at the height of his fame, Duffy did the unthinkable. He put down his camera and walked away for good.
Duffy literally went into the back garden with all his transparencies and negatives, made a big bonfire and burnt them.
I don't know why he stopped. I guess it was his bonfire of the vanities, I don't know.
He just wanted to do what he wanted to do in the way he wanted to do it, and if the rest of the world didn't like it, then tough.
Michael Caine, John Lennon, McCartney and George Martin, William Burroughs, yes, Sammy Davis Jr. What's the negatives on that? They got burnt. For God's sake, keep that sun there. No, it's good. Yeah, have we?
This is not a very elaborate setup, is it?
That's nice.
It's a great line.
Isn't it? That's wonderful.
It's June 2009, and photographer Brian Duffy is preparing for a shoot. His first in 30 years. Once a legendary name of the 60s and 70s, Duffy, now 76, hasn't shot a frame since he gave up photography and burnt a huge amount of his work.
Well, the purpose of today is testing. I mean, whether I remember my left hand from my right, how do you focus, which eye do I use, what am I looking at? But having that, it just is second nature, just get going, boom, boom, boom. Nothing's different. It's literally 1978 since I last took a photograph.
Okay.
Today's session is just a dry run. Over the next few months, Duffy will shoot new portraits of favourite old sitters, leading up to the first ever gallery show of his work.
My approach always was the same, obsequious toadyism. Grabbing my forelock, and I think you can see my decline synonymous with the way my hair at the front fell out. I tell you the thing I've always been amazed at is looking into a camera lens at someone, and they just change. And then all of a sudden you see something, and you're not sure if you can discuss it because you're not sure if you're drunk or something. I always think of a photograph, if you look at it, you realise that in front of it, in time, there was something not very interesting. The photograph is absolutely interesting, and a fraction after is not interesting. There's a moment you think, what was happening at that very moment? If a photograph doesn't have that in it.
Throughout his career, Duffy worked non-stop. Celebrity, fashion, advertising, he did it all, quickly establishing himself as one of the stars of the London scene.
It's difficult to talk about Duffy without situating him alongside his peers. And that inevitably means the Duffy, Bailey, Donovan triangle.
Come down for a second.
There certainly is a school of English photographers. I call them the Black Trinity of Duffy, Donovan, and Bailey. Very good photographers in their own way.
Good. And
Before the laddish young snappers arrived on the scene, photographers were gentlemen in three-piece suits. But the East End boys threw out all the rules, putting the swing into 60s London and becoming icons for a new generation.
David Bailey makes love daily.
Brian Duffy, bald and scruffy.
Now, we're so used to models being really top of the tree, very well paid and looked after, but the photographers were the stars in those days, not the models.
Duffy has always been considered an enigma. He's rarely given interviews, has never published a book or sold a print of his work. And he would have been happy for it to stay that way, until his son, Chris, unearthed what was left of his father's archive.
I mean, some of my grandchildren didn't even know I'd been a photographer. Chris said to me, I found all this box of your stuff. And he said, it's quite interesting. So I said, he's rejuvenated me, or sparked me up like the thing on the table, you know, with the bolts here.
This was a great picture here, this one. This was a full page.
God, I'd love to see these blown up. I really would.
When he decided to burn his legs and just stop taking pictures, he went off the radar. He went right underground. And it's kind of been my mission to put his legacy back up there, really.
God, where did I get that outfit? Look, I'm bollocking someone.
When I started looking at the material 3 years ago, he knew that he had contracted a degenerative lung disease, that it was time that he actually did start, or let me take the material and do something with it.
Long thought of as one of the Cockney photographers, Duffy was actually a North London boy, born to working-class Irish parents in 1933. The eldest of four, Duffy was just a boy when his father left to fight in the war, leaving him alone with his mother, 2 brothers, and a sister.
I had an enchanting childhood, running wild like a thug in the war, which I loved. I really mean it, I did enjoy the war. Bomb sites, nicking things wherever you could. No, I did enjoy the war. Well, it would appear it was very disruptive, but one didn't notice it. I was a rather wonderful child, an all-round wizard.
So what are these?
Paintings. I guess they are figurative, in a way.
What would you call your style?
A nerdly-durdle, really. I've been painting since I was at art school, 1950. And on and off, I get bouts of paintology.
So how does a young, thuggish child of the war end up going to art school?
Oh, I think by then I'd caught a lot of trouble. There were some people who decided to do some sort of social engineering. And so they took us, as I remember, took us to the opera, to the ballet, to art galleries. We all became super enthusiasts for ballet and opera and looking at paintings. And they thought I had potential and said, art school's a place for you. And that's what I did. I stayed in the painting group for a little while and realised they're all bloody geniuses. So I thought I'd knock that on the head. Then the most attractive lot were these girls who were doing dress design. So I got into dress design. When I moved on to photography, I had an innate eye to knowing how a garment worked.
In 1953, fresh from art school, Duffy began designing for some small British fashion houses. A job offer soon followed from Balenciaga in Paris, but by then the budding couturier had met a pretty young secretarial student named June.
They had promised me the job in August, and you know, I couldn't go. June said to me, I'm pregnant. So I said, really? Good gracious. And so, had to get married.
With a wife and now son Chris to support, Duffy needed to make money fast. He decided to put his design dreams on hold and got an illustrator's job at Harper's Bazaar.
I think the art director then, she was called Jill Varney. I saw some photographic contacts on her desk, and I said, oh, they're all the same picture. She said, no, they're not. Have a look at them. They're all slightly different. So I picked up the sheet, and of course they were all slightly different of a model. So I thought, that's a darn sight easier than drawing. So I sort of thought to myself, I know what I'll do, I'll take up photography. Just sort of an easy way of making money. Thought, I could do this, my sort of thing. Women, clothes, gadgets. I must have a go at it.
A series of lowly assistance jobs followed before Duffy landed in the studio of top photographer Adrian Flowers. In 1957, with just one small commission under his belt, the inexperienced upstart decided he was ready for the big time.
Put about 5 or 6 pictures together. Between 2 sheets of paper, I had the snail in the eye, some blue pictures through some wobbly glass, and went into Vogue Studios. I had to go and see Audrey Withers, who was the editor of Vogue. I met Audrey and she said yes. I mean, I wasn't doing much more than using a broom, making tea and taking a picture. The first picture I did never got published. Then the head of the studio said, Miss Withers wants to see you in her office. She said, oh, good morning, Brian, how are you? I said, I'm very well, Miss Withers. And she said, now, we've got to photograph Mr. Otto Klemperer. She said, do you know who he is? I said, well, I'm not absolutely sure, bluffing my way. Well, Klemperer was an absolute genius conductor. And she said, I just wanted to tell you what you should know. I said, yes, certainly, Miss Withers. She said, when you meet him, you call him Herr Doctor, and then as you continue the conversation, you call him Maestro. And by the way, he wants to be photographed on a Leica. I said, I don't have a Leica. She said, oh, I'm sure you'll be able to get you one. And so I went along in my tripod, a camera, which I'd never used. Door opened, and this man stood there, and he had 2 giant women, Wagnerian beauties. And I said, Herr Doctor, click my heels. And I said, Maestro, would you mind sitting here? He said, yeah. I thought, oh, good God. He's got the same expression. He had facial paralysis, which didn't help. I went through 36 exposures. There was virtually no difference. He just went... I stood up, and we got to the door. He said, tell me, Mr. Photographer, is it normal that when you do the photograph, you keep the lens cap on? And went out through the door with these 2 women. At about 3:30 in the afternoon, I got a call. Would I go down and see Miss Withers? And I thought, I've only had this job 3 months, and already I've managed to get myself fired. And she said, you're not going to believe this. Those dreadful boys in the darkroom have ruined your film. And being the creep and worm and shit that I am, I said, oh my God, how awful. In the most sincere or insincere way I can muster. They'd actually covered for me. I've never forgot that. They were just wonderful. The point was ordering me to have a Leica. He thought I was going to photograph him in rehearsal, and he didn't want some clumpy idiot going click, 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 click loud while he's trying to give it rock all. And Leicas were notoriously silent. So I went along there the next time where he didn't worry about me making noise. I took it on a rollie. Oh, there he is. Yeah. He doesn't look too pleased, does he?
1958 Vogue, very little difference between 1958 Vogue and pre-war Vogue. I mean, as late as the 50s, you were slightly, it was slightly a sort of déclassé to come into the office not wearing gloves and a small hat. And I think Donovan and Duffy and Bailey, who all sort of start round about the same time, bring a sense of reality into the magazine.